Hi.
Can I just tell you how much of a huge fan I am as almost every ICU critical care nurse I've ever met?
Thank
You're
you.
just like, Laura, let me just thank you because you have done so much for nursing that, I mean, we have not had a voice like you. You are the voice.
Thank you. Thank
And
you.
that is, we need something now, don't we?
But it's great what you're doing, Kate. It really is. It's great what you're doing. Kathy Stokes, Doris Carroll, they're really banding together and trying to get something done, and I appreciate that. And I'm sure a lot of nurses do, although nursing's so different now.
That's what I've heard. I mean, my background, I was a medic in the military for several years and then went back and decided to get a bachelor's in nursing. So I've only been an RN since 2009, I think.
Oh my God.
Yeah, so.
I'm 45 years.
I'm going to get there someday. Okay. I'm sticking it out.
Stick it out.
But I talk to people, like I have family friends that are retiring now, and they're like, things have changed so much. There are nurses I work with that have been at the bedside for 30 years, and they cannot believe the change.
Big change.
And and it's like this amazing animal that's kind of gone from healthcare and focus on the patient to, I don't know, it's a mess.
Mm-hmm. And nurses
really
allowed it.
Yeah.
Allowed it. You know what's missing?
I think we've been a little bit complicit.
The passion. The passion is gone. There used to be passion. I mean, that's why we were able to get 35,000 nurses I didn't even have a computer back in 1995. I mean, and I have one now. I don't know what to do with it, but we had no social media. And we got 35,000 people there. Things were different. Nurses had passion. They don't have it now. They're burnt. They feel powerless. And I have so many people to blame for that. I start with academia. Start blaming them because they have created all these different programs that take nurses from the bedside. You know, clinical nurse specialist, nurse practitioner. Years ago, we never had that. You were a staff nurse. Bing, that's it. And there was passion, and I don't see that anymore. Even at my seminars, I don't see that passion. I work per diem. I don't see that passion anymore. It's so sad.
I think I was just talking to an anesthesiologist at the dog park, because I'm always at the dog park, and he works with a program down in South Jersey, and he said to me, years ago, when we needed nurse anesthetists because we didn't have enough anesthesiologists. Mm-hmm. He said, but you had these ICU critical care nurses that would spend 10 years at the bedside. They were seasoned. He said, we knew they were coming with a skill set. He said, but what I see now, he said, I see people running to a nurse anesthetist program or an NP program. And he's like, as an educator, he said, it's kind of concerning. He said, because if the goal is to come into nursing, spend 2 years at the bedside for critical care, and then run off to an OR or a critical care unit where you're intubating patients, he said, that's one thing. He said, but because my concern is the quality that's going to be coming out from that, but also what happens to the longevity of the staff nurses who are at the bedside that are actually keeping the patients alive? Because my job as an anesthesiologist, I get people intubated, through a procedure, to recovery, off to their unit. He's like, and that's where that bedside nurse, that's where they are the ones saving the lives.
Right.
And he said, I talk to so many young people, he said, and it's just like they're in, they're out, that's it. He said, but I also look at the nurses that are at the bedside, he goes, they're treated like crap.
Right.
So.
But they allow it. They allow it.
Yeah. Yeah, we are definitely, like I'd say, apathetic. And like I wonder like what the tone was when you did your march. You did the march was in 1995, I believe, right?
I did two, one in 1995 and one in 1996. Okay. And after that, I had to stop. I was paying a lot. I had two bills in Washington. One bill was big. It was HR 1191. And in order to keep that bill alive in Washington, I had to pay lobbyists $20,000 a month in order to keep it active. And I was doing it all by myself. I didn't ask any money from anybody. God forbid I got a penny from any of your so-called professional nursing associations. So I did it all on my own. And after a while, I ran out of money and I couldn't do it anymore. And once the bill is not active in Washington, it sort of falls by the wayside, and that's what happened. It's unfortunate I didn't have the backing from these so-called professional nursing associations, because we could have got it passed, although they didn't want it passed. I mean, when you have a nursing association, and at that time we had journals because we didn't have the internet, and when all your money comes from hospital advertising dollars, the last thing you want to do is irritate those people. And so there was no financial help from any professional nursing association. But, I did it on my own, and, after 2 years, I sort of ran out of money, and that was it. It was just hard to communicate with the 35,000 nurses that showed up.
Yeah.
Anytime I wanted to give them, I used to give them a monthly update on the bill, but sending out 35,000 pieces of postage every month, that became a big expense. So I guess I was born before my time. Maybe that was it. I don't know. That was probably it.
Yeah, I would say so. You needed some Facebook action.
I could have had 1 million people there back in 1995. Really.
Yeah.
But it's just sad that we don't get the numbers. I'm going to be speaking at this March, April 26th. And, I'm going around now to the country. Every seminar I lecture at, I'm telling people, and not only telling them, but demanding that they be there. I mean, they have to be there. There's no negotiations. Don't tell me you don't have a babysitter, all of a sudden you don't have any money. Start saving now. I mean, you work as a nurse, you make a decent salary. Get your ass there, for heaven's sake. Stop bitching and moaning and whining. And let's just get this over with and get it done right. The time is right. I mean, and I tell them, if you're in a nursing program going for your bachelor's or your master's, go to the people that run the school and tell them to organize a bus to be there. I mean, if you're in a union, if your hospital is unionized, go to your union and tell them you must join this effort. No ifs, ands, or buts. And if they say no, then get 200-300 nurses in your hospital to storm their office. You'll see how fast they'll join the march, or the rally that we're having. Nurses got to get active. Talk it up at work. Get 10 people from work. If every nurse got 10 people from work, you'd have millions there. But it's sad. It's really sad, because legislation will make the working environment safe. It'll allow you to give the kind of care you want to give. I don't get it. I don't.
I know, and it's hard because there's been so many, every year for the past, at least, I'm going to say probably since 2004, they've had consecutive bills in legislation, both on a federal level between the Congress and Senate. And these things will get passed up because, it's a good thing to say you're going to do something. But as my dad would say, pardon my French, shit or get off the pot. Either you're going to do something or you're not. I think there's been a false sense of security for unionized nurses because I think they feel my union's going to handle it. Right. That's not true. Right. Many unions, at least I'm in New Jersey, and speaking of how many unions we have a little bit more than a handful. And you have to say, well, what are they able to do? If your union is 2 hospitals and maybe 3,000 nurses or 2,000 nurses, that's not a significant amount. We don't have what California had. California in 1999, when they got their bill, the California Nurses Association was a union. It's not like what I'm dealing with in New Jersey and New Jersey nurses are dealing with, or other states where you have put in the state's name, State Nurses Association, and all of those people that sit on that executive board making those decisions, they're in cahoots with the hospital associations of the state. Because generally speaking, there's some sort of nurse leadership executive membership club, that's essentially, they're on the same plane.
Right.
So there is no interest. So it's like, where did we go wrong? Did we go wrong in the sense that we didn't get involved or we're not asking questions? And I've brought this up like a lot of times too. I was an emergency room nurse for years, and I paid my dues to ENA. And I started asking ENA, why are you not supporting this bill?
Right.
I'll tell people, and I tell people this all the time, you flip over the back of your journal and you look at the consulting firm that's there. Look at that consulting firm. That firm is going into if your major advertisers are, if they're providing a service to a hospital or a facility, if you're providing an education program that you're getting paid for, then you need to look at that organization and say, are you looking at my best interest?
Right.
And if they're not, go put your money in somewhere else.
Right. Right.
Donate to something else.
Right.
Because even in this state, we've had a safe staffing bill every legislative session since 2004. Not one bill has ever even gotten a hearing. That should just irritate nurses. But it's like, well, what's the big deal? I mean, I think it's a big deal when I see my colleagues, ICUs tripled, ERs 10 patients, floor nurses that are on telly with 6, 7, 8 patients, and it's unsafe. And then I just say, how did this get so bad? Thinking it's okay that, that you work 12 hours, no break. You're punching out that you took a break because you're afraid of retaliation. Right.
They allow it. Nurses
we do.
Allow it. And they have to realize that they are a leaderless group. Do not ever think that anyone in nursing administration has your back. Never have, never will. My biggest opponent in Washington, when we went, we had hearings about the bill we had in Washington back in 1995. And all the people that went to testimony were all nursing administrators telling Congress how this bill was horrible. So they don't have your back. Nursing is a leaderless group. But it's about time we realize that we have no leaders. We are a leaderless group, and it's time for each and every one of us to band together and get some things done. And that's the only thing that's going to work. Just that nurses have to start getting mad again. You got to get mad, you got to get fed up, and you got to band together. I mean, you're doing this, Kathy Stokes, Doris Carroll. Where's everybody else? Where is everybody else? Where the heck is everybody else? The first rally they had, I think 2 years ago, there was 160 people there. That's a disgrace. Last year, I think they had 500 or 600 or 700, I think. I'm not sure on the numbers. I was supposed to be there. I got stuck in the airport because it was bad weather, but that's still a disgrace. With social media, there should be at least 1 million nurses there. And if
there should. And I think I have to say, I am a unionized nurse, and I will say, I am disheartened by the fact that as a member of 2 unions, that neither one of my unions knew about Nurses Take DC.
Right.
And that's concerning because here's an opportunity, and I've heard it from presidents of both unions, and I've heard it from vice presidents. Well, the nurses have to legislate. I spent the better part of the year talking to every Senate Health Committee member in New Jersey, aides, assembly people, and they say the same thing. We need nurses to get involved. We need nurses to be contacting their legislators in their districts, but also being organized. And there's been very little cooperation from the union side. And I said, that's where things change. What I did last year, and I think it was probably before I had friended you, is I was putting out weekly requests. These are the Senate Health Committee members we have to call, tweet, email, and it was effective because we had a bill sitting for almost 2 years, and it went nowhere. It was never introduced into. It was introduced into committee, but it never had a reading, and it sat. So we got really creative. We did like a tweet storm. We had 150 tweets go to one of the senators who's been on the committee for 15 years. Because I had called him 2 weeks in advance or 3 weeks before. Can we talk about this? We can't get a phone call because I'm not a lobbyist. I'm I'm not a union. You know how that works, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I don't have 20 grand to be throwing at to be throwing at them or a campaign. But it was interesting how just getting 150 tweets in an hour, which is really easy to do, and that blowing up a senator's phone gets you a phone call at 9 o'clock in the morning. Please stop. We'll talk.
Okay, good.
But I mean, we need nurses to really we need a centralized location for them to come together. And I think it needs to be state by state, because if you're relying on a federal law to take place, that's something that's going to be very difficult to pass. I think every year we need to push for it. We need to be making sure we're making noise, calling our state representatives in D.C. And our Congress representatives.
Right.
And that will probably take time, but if you're in Ohio, which is trying to get a legislative bill, Massachusetts, which has been, they've been very active.
Right.
Florida, which had a bill last year, and their bill died too. But you have to get involved and try and find an organization that's going to work at doing this. Or if there isn't something, make something.
Right.
I mean, it's just, I can't imagine the apathy. And I said, looking at it, I think the ER nurses are probably the most apathetic, because it's just nothing's going to ever change. That's just the way that it is. It doesn't need to be this way. And you travel all over the place. Right. What are you hearing from nurses all over the country? It's the same problem everywhere?
It's the same problem everywhere. Same problem. Everybody has the same complaints, and no one wants to do anything about it. I really think what nurses need to do is, a lot of nurses are unionized. And I think that's the way to go. That's the way I went in 1995. I made sure I contacted every single union, whether it be AFL-CIO, HPAE, CWA, every union I contacted. And I told them that, you have X amount of members, whether it be 10,000, 3,000, 20,000, 100,000, and you need to get them there. And if you don't, I will make sure every nurse in the United States knows that you are not doing the right thing for nurses. That the hospitals that you have unionized nurses, I'll make sure they vote you out when your contract comes for a vote. And that was through a phone call. I would say about 90% of them, I had to get on a plane and go to their office and talk to the president of each of those unions. I think 1199 at that time was Carlos Rivera. Sweeney was, I think, HPAE or something. So I spoke to all.
Yeah, Ann Toomey. I think Ann Toomey. She spoke.
She was the president.
I think in 95.
Yeah, I think
she was the president. Yeah.
I think there's one guy higher up that was higher than her. So I went to go speak to all the bigwigs, and I told them I will do everything in my power to make sure nurses no longer pay you any dues. You have no choice but to join this effort in Washington. And they did a good job. I mean, they flew people in, they had buses, and it worked. And I think we need to do that. I think it's better than leaving nurses to do it on their own. It's like having a bunch of sheep. We definitely need the organization. It's like having a bunch of sheep in a corral. You need somebody to herd them, You got to herd them together. And that's how it has to start in order to get the numbers. Because if you get 1 million nurses there, you will get what you want. You will get legislation. And it's so simple. I mean, they get 1 million women for that women's march on D.C., right? Then they get 500,000 last year. And now they're organizing another one. If we're smart, we make it on the same day.
I think it's January. They have one on January 20th, and that's the state ones, I think. But I think they're doing another one. I thought it was in March, but
they're doing one in Washington. We should really, do one the same time they're doing it. Only show up
in good idea.
Nursing uniforms, or you know what I'm saying?
Why not? Hey, listen, 91% of our career field are women, which is probably why we are not taken very serious, and why, it's funny because I'm a member of my shared governance at my unit, and also for the hospital committee. And one of the things people say, people aren't complaining, there's only a few. And I have people saying to me, thank you so much for being a voice. I'm like, yeah, but you also need to be a voice, because It just can't be one or two people.
Right.
You know,
Right.
if you're getting an assignment that's unsafe, speak up.
Right.
Say something.
Right.
If you're not saying anything, if you're unionized, maybe you have a form to fill out. If you're non-unionized, still verbalize it.
Right.
And you have, nurses need to empower themselves. There are ways of reporting unsafe staffing.
Right.
It's through JACO, through the Department of Health.
Mm-hmm.
You have an opportunity. You don't have to take it.
Right.
But I think people are just so, I don't want to. If anyone were to get fired because of being a loudmouth, it would probably be me.
Oh, I've been fired for being
happened.
a big mouth. I've been fired 3 times. Hello.
Oh, geez.
Been fired 3 times. Always sued, though, and always got my job back. The last one I got fired for is I unionized a hospital back in '84.
Good.
Yeah, I unionized the hospital, and they fired me for doing that. And they said, of course, I was in administration, not supposed to do that. But I wasn't. There wasn't a budget to work with, and so I unionized the hospital, and they fired me, and I brought them to court, and I won. And
Good for you, and especially for being in administration and doing that, because we don't see that today. It's like once you hit that head nurse rank,
right?
It's like, oh,
right.
I forgot what it was like. There's like a nursing amnesia.
Right, right. And I think what we need to demand from our educators is a different kind of nursing education. When you go on for your bachelor's or your master's, they really need to discuss the issues and give you information on what to do when placed in an unsafe situation. It's interesting. I was a tenured professor for 12 years, and I used to teach in the associate and in the baccalaureate program. And in the baccalaureate program, these are nurses. They're already nurses, and they're coming back for a bachelor's degree. So, I made school nice for them. I didn't give any assignments. I didn't give any homework. I didn't give any tests. And they learned. And, it was a good experience. And when they graduated, they were like, oh, my God, I really love school. I love school. I'm like, it's not like this. They said, where should I get a master's? Should I go for nursing education, nursing administration? Should I be a clinical nurse specialist? Should I be a nurse practitioner? I'm like, where do you want to be 5 years from now? Because if you want to remain at the bedside, don't waste your time getting a master's in nursing, being taught by people that don't practice. If you want to stay at the bedside, you go for a law degree. You can do it online. Because, see, when you're an attorney and you're working as a staff nurse, I doubt very much nursing administration would put you in a capacity of short staffing. That if you're an attorney, I doubt very much when working in the capacity of a staff nurse that you'll have some surgeon yelling and screaming about, you're wedged to swan. So it's a way maybe to move on up the ladder and get some more respect at work. That I think we need nurse attorneys. I think there has to be one nurse attorney on each unit, each shift. And things will change. Fast and hard.
Oh, absolutely.
Especially if your specialty, being an attorney, is medical malpractice. It's interesting. There were 3 schools a few years ago that opened up an MSN/JD program, right? 3 schools. 2 in Michigan, 1 in Columbus. And they opened up in September. By October 30th, they all shut down. And why did they close down in less than 2 months? Because they were told by hospitals in the area, you are to close your program immediately. For if you don't, we will not allow you to use our hospital facility for your clinicals. And these were programs that had associate and baccalaureate degrees. And if you don't have a hospital to bring your students to for clinical rotation, you're not going to get accreditation.
Yeah.
And all 3 closed down. Now, I wish I was dean of those programs, because I would have kept it going. But it's another way nurses can possibly make a change, the sneaky way. Because no one has to know that you're online taking a law course. Just something to think about.
That's great advice.
Because it's only 2. You can do it in 2.5 years online. And if 2.5 years, you got a majority of nurses being attorneys, things will change.
Yeah, it would also help get legislation through now, wouldn't it?
Oh, very quickly. So
Yeah,
that's an
absolutely.
option. Of course, you're not going to learn that in nursing school, that's for sure. Bye.
No, I see. I'm very fortunate with facilities I work at. They're both university type facilities. So I get to see lots of nursing students and talk to them about safe staffing and what they need to be doing and recruit them to get on the web, check out the web page, get on the Facebook page. And so many of them have said they don't teach us about anything to do with advocacy.
Right.
And I don't know anything. And I've contacted several of the state universities that have nursing programs and said, would you mind if I came in and just, came in to just have like 15 minutes to talk to your students about legislation that's happening, what's going on, and how they should be involved? It was like crickets. Crickets. And I mean, I am an alumni from Rutgers. Well, actually, it was UMD&J, which doesn't exist anymore because. But I said, that's the kind of stuff where you want your nurses to be getting involved with legislation and be understanding of what's going to happen. But there doesn't seem to be that connect. And then when these nursing students, they start working as their first job, they're getting abused. They're being put in unsafe situations. They don't know what they should be doing. They take assignments that are not the safest assignments for them, and then they're open for liability. They burn out and they leave. Or they're like, you know what? Let me do an advanced practice, DNP, NP, or a nurse anesthetist and get the hell out of here because I can't do this for 20, 30 years.
Right. Well, nursing schools exist to make hospitals happy. I mean, if you worked in a nursing school, you observe the conversation between maybe the dean of the faculty and the director of nursing. I mean, there's a weird relationship between them. If I'm running a nursing school and I want that nursing school to have a facility to do clinical in, I am going to suck up to the hospital. And the last thing I want to do is offer programs that teach advocacy, teach nurses how to get legislation passed. They're not going to let my graduates in their hospital. It's sort of like communism, when someone controls you like that. It borders on communism. That's what it does. It's crazy.
And it's so funny. There was a nursing student, and she had reached out to me, and she said, I'm meeting with a senator, so can you give me some information? I said, sure, of course, you can go to the website, there's information. And she met with him, so she had, I think she had either Facebook me or text me, and she said, I met with him. Well, then I get a friend request from the senator. And I was like, well, this is exactly what we need, because her having that conversation with that senator, and this is a senator where in New Jersey, we had a staffing law to increase the number of nursing aides and nursing homes, long-term care facilities. It got voted through in 2015, went through Assembly, went through the Senate, went to the Chris Christie's desk, and it was vetoed. Unfortunately, every Republican Assembly person and Senate person voted against it. Well, this gentleman happens to be a Republican senator, but his niece is now a nursing student who was paired up with this other nursing student. They were talking to them, explaining to them what's happening. And I said, if these young ladies and men could understand the power they have, just going in and taking that school assignment and speaking to a legislator, or taking that opportunity and voicing what they're seeing and telling, like literally sitting down and telling these people, these assembly people, these senators, these policymakers what's happening, it's in numbers that will change things. These men and women who sit in these elected seats, they know that we don't get breaks. They know that there's unsafe staffing because they've been hearing it for years. And their thing is, unless I get 100 phone calls about it,
not going to do anything about it.
Not a big deal. Not a big deal at all. And I think that that's something that, people say, well, it'll never change. Listen, the hospital associations in each state are really big, and yes, they're opposed to it. But you have some amazing nurse researchers You have the Robert Wood Johnson Foundation that has a lot of nursing research that has done. They've done a good amount of studies on staffing ratios. There's legitimate data. There has been worldwide research going on that I think there's a study that's been going on for almost 20 years at this point. I think that was out of the University of Pennsylvania. We have the data. We see what happens with California. California, the